Hello, everybody. Hope you're doing well today. I have got the Nine of Cups as the obstacle and the Ace of Cups as the opportunity for today. So let's jump into it. What does the Nine look like? Oh yeah, very, very neatly organized and segregated cups, all lined up, all divided. So one of the negative aspects I see this card representing is is a byproduct of sophistication and your faculties of perception and analysis increasing. As you know, it's I think it's pretty natural as you mature, as you get to meet more people, as you get to know individuals more deeply, as you have friendships or relationships that last longer. you you start you can start recognizing more and more qualities in an individual as well as in yourself. Sometimes you can have the experience of realizing that there's some sort of interest or drive or fear or passion that has been motivating you. And it's only after you recognize that in yourself that you start kind of keeping an eye out for it in others. And then you realize, oh, wow, everyone has this, everyone has an aspect of this in themselves as well. So I think there's an aspect of maturing in terms of, your the way that you hold relationships. One of the aspects of that sophistication is that things tend to get more and more complex, and often near the end of that journey of what initially could be like a genuine interest and fascination with getting to know more of these parts of an individual's personality. At a certain point, you can get to such an advanced stage of complexity that it starts to feel like every aspect of everyone's personality is so unique, and therefore there's nothing in common. There's no consensus that you could form with anyone because ultimately their experiences are totally unique. And again, this is kind of like the dark side of something that I think is a pretty valuable experience to drive yourself to, recognizing that the people you interact with, they're not just these caricature representation of the classes they belong to. Often people that have young, inexperienced, naive relationships, they might be friends with Judy, but they don't even really see Judy as Judy. They see Judy as a woman, a 20-year-old. Like they see this individual as a representation of classes that she belongs to. So I certainly think it's a good idea to, gain more maturity and sophistication so that you could treat people with, I don't know, the kind of respect that I feel like they deserve of actually being interacted with. You're talking to me, you're not just talking to your idea of some class or group that I belong to. But as that interest and fascination with people's nuanced qualities continues, you can get to a point where you start realizing like people are so unique, it goes beyond the point where you feel like you could have really anything in common with them. And this can lead to a type of dark, cynical detachment from people. I think that I think that it could be overall. I think it could be a really great thing to accept about people, if it doesn't inspire this kind of cynicism and detachment and apathy. But in this case, we're talking about the the possibility of the worst case scenario happening. So yeah, I think the obstacle here is to essentially not come to that conclusion when facing what appears to be that collection of facts. You're looking at people and you're thinking to yourself, fact, this person has experienced everything everything that I might talk to them about, every word that I use to describe, to conceptualize some experience, they haven't experienced any of those things the way that I have. No one has seen the world from my point of view. Everyone. So when someone says dog, does it really mean the same thing when I say dog? And you can get yourself to this sort of deconstructivist postmodernist state where you just go, no, there's no consensus. None of these experiences can be shared, right? Um, the obstacle to overcome here is to essentially take a stand against that conclusion. There's a couple different ways um, you can go about doing that. I I kind of like the I kind of like the sort of Zen Buddhist attitude of just essentially finding a place where you could be okay with the fact that you don't really have any idea what you're interacting with, as far as people, as far as the world, and I think if you can find the way to be able to be comfortable or even enjoy having that kind of relationship with the world and the people around you, like optimistic, like I like hanging out with people, we talk, we seem to have these pleasant interactions, I like doing nice things, but like ultimately, do I truly know these people? No, not really. They're kind of really a beautiful, fascinating mystery. That's it's pretty wonderful, pretty mysterious, keeps things exciting. I mean, um, there's an interesting thing that happens often when you've known people for a long time. You often you can often sort of trick yourself into thinking that you know those people, but like people change all the time. People change every day. People, you know, somebody reads a book and then they could be a radically different person. Their outlook on life can radically change. Meanwhile, if throughout that whole transformation you keep thinking that they're the same person, you know, you're going to be missing all those significant changes that they're going through. They might even be telling you. They might even be expressing this shift in their perception of the world, but sadly, there seems to be something about us as perceiving creatures that it's like it seems like unless you're looking for something, unless you're expecting to see something, we're generally pretty ignorant to it. So unless the way you're relating to your friends is, you know, unless you're considering them people who you're always on the lookout for what's new about them, you know, what's new about you, something's different, um, unless you're interacting with them, approaching them with that expectation, you might be missing all these amazing, exciting to them, exciting transformations, right? Um, but yeah, but again, it comes at the cost of kind of making peace with the fact that you're ultimately interacting with chaos. That could be really difficult for people. A lot of people, they want to know what they're in for. They want to know what they can count on, and that's its own obstacle in a lot of ways. But yeah, just the thing to consider here is you can abstractly deconstruct people to these extremes that can appear as though they have nothing in common with you, but you know, um, it's uh, it's a worthy journey or undertaking to fight that, to stand up against that conclusion. And then, interestingly, kind of on the flip side, I would say the Ace of Cups and the Ten of Cups might be the kind of opposites, but it's pretty close. We've got the Ace of Cups as the opportunity, and I think that this, for one, I think this symbolizes the experience of like you got this new idea, you're enlightened to a new direction in life, new opportunities. You're inspired to look in a particular direction, and often the direction you are looking towards, the energy that is inspiring you, it's aiming you in the direction of relationships, meeting. It could be that you're looking for a new romantic partner, and this is you just kind of getting that idea, like, you know what, I think I'm going to put myself out there. It could be maybe you've been working on something, and you've been working on something really hard. Maybe you've been getting really good at it, and this symbolizes this kind of realization, like, you know what, I got to share this with someone, with people. I got to find some people who are into this thing. Um, could be this the inspiration to reconnect with someone, to get closer with family members. Could be the idea to maybe have children. You know, but one way or another, it's this it's that inspiring energy that is kind of pulling you in this direction, pulling your attention in this direction. And one of the I think one of the things that can often be a mistake when moving in the direction of, you know, meeting people, and in preparing for meeting someone or reconnecting with someone, or, you know, or when actually interacting with them. I think it can often be a tempting mistake to try and connect with people by kind of looking at your life as a collection of these interesting, colorful tidbits, you know? These cool, it's like kids being like, "Hey, nice to meet you. Like, look at all my toys. I got this thing. I got this thing." It's like this show and tell of all these little pieces, you know? All these little puzzle pieces and toys and gadgets and things. And you know, this is it's not like I'm describing something totally out of the ordinary. Generally, there's an accepted, you know, there's an accepted sort of checklist that people often go through when they meet each other. You know, what do I do? What do I do for money? What do I like to do for fun? Maybe what kind of friends do I have? What my favorite music is? What my interests are? What my hobbies are? Politically, you know, who's the bad guy? Who's the good guy? All these little things. Um, and I'm not here to say that this is entirely like a bad thing, but I think the opportunity here, when feeling yourself inspired in this way to go out and pursue these connections, I think partially the opportunity here is to get a grip on that, to not let yourself be consumed with all those little details, you know, the relationships that really matter, the relationships that are really special and last a long time, and really give a lot of meaning to your life. Ultimately, they're not about those new shoes that you got, or the haircut, or the stories of that cool adventure you had on, or whatever. You know, it's not that sales pitch of like 101 cool things about me that I could put in my bio on my dating app, right? I think it's ultimately about something at the core of your personality, the core of who you are as a person. I believe there is a virtue there, something that is almost like a perpetual ace of cups, something that inspires and drives you. And I I posit that if you think about all those little bits and pieces that show and tell that you might feel inspired to put forward as the way that you introduce yourself, you know, I would argue that all of those experiences, they're they're all a byproduct of that one drive, of that one virtue. And that, while again, I'm not saying it's like some terrible mistake to put yourself out there with all these details, with all this minutia. Um, but I just think that the opportunity here, the more advantageous kind of thing, is to sort of connect with whatever it is at your core that drives you, and then to put that forward. And then you could always, you know, present those details as supporting evidence for that thing. But, you know, to put that virtue front and center, that's the kind of thing that I think often when you just bombard people with like, 20 things about you, it could be a lot of work for that person to like, resist getting distracted by all those individual clues, and then do the mental labor of trying to find the kind of common thread that unites them all. Now, if you're a very integrated person and if you genuinely just have that one thing that drives you, then probably all those things you mentioned will clearly point to the fact that, I mean, you meet some people and they're just like, I love combat. Every Everything about me is just a reflection of the fact that I'm a fighter, and pugilism is my passion. The way I dress is all for fighting efficiency. My haircut is short because for fighting. Everything is just a, in those cases, people could be like, okay, wow, this is a warlike person, and for some people that's a virtue that they really identify with, but often I think the instinct when meeting new people is to like really hedge your bets, and like, here's a detail about me that makes me look like an adventurous person, but here's a detail about me that makes me look like a responsible person, and here's a detail where it's like, look, I did something fun and crazy, and here's a thing where it's like, oh, but I also really like relaxing, and like you're trying to, it's often the case that I think people try to like just pad out every potential way that their character could be scrutinized, right? And then as a byproduct, you tend to just come out looking like a pretty average person that isn't particularly passionate about anything. It's certainly risky to to figure out what it is that drives you, and then to represent yourself as a person who has that drive, because you will certainly meet people that will be like, oh, you're this kind of person. This is the virtue that you hold most dearly. That's not the one that I'm into, But I mean, isn't that kind of a good thing, Not not then having to go through the months or years figuring out that fundamentally you actually have nothing in common with this person. There's just like, we both love going to get ice cream. It's like, okay, great, What kind of relationship can you build off of that? How long will that be a quality that'll keep you together through the good times and the bad, right? Something to think about. But yeah, so I think use the inspiration, when considering how it is that you're going to, you want to meet people, like you want to make contact, you want to make these new relationships. It's like, okay, what is that you? Who is that you? What is that thing? How are you going to put that you forward? And use that energy to figure out who you are and what it is that drives you, and then put that forward. That's going to be it for me today. Thanks for watching. Drop me a like if you enjoyed the video. I invite you to comment free reading or anything along those lines. That would indicate to me you would like a free reading, and I will enter you into the weekly draw for a free one-on-one reading. Thanks again for watching. I'll be back tomorrow. Take care.